can't hear it, but I know it's there.
He knows it's there. It's a good soundtrack.
It is. I like that one. Like, I liked the animation from our video last Tuesday with the prism thing, but I like the music that we have for this one.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have headphones on, so we can't hear it. But we are joined by a special guest today.
We are. Have
Former Alderman Scott Burlingame. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks so much for this opportunity to come and chat a little bit. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We tested our audio today for you. We tried to do the best production we could get for you. So we're at our best today. Hopefully that's good. But all right, we have an exciting topic list, but talk to us a little bit about life after city council. It's kind of like one of those deals and then all of a sudden.
It is, and it is funny how so much of it became like almost like a switch went off. Like there's so much busyness when you're involved on council and reading budgets and talking to constituents and talking to employees and doing all of this. And then it just kind of comes to a close. Mm-hmm. And luckily, my wife insisted that I take vacation for a little bit and like get out of town and had a camper and spend some time at the lake and stuff like that. But I also have, as everybody on the council does, we have full-time jobs too. And my full-time job got really busy then. Right. And so fate kind of filled it in a little bit. And it was maybe a good thing I didn't have to handle both. So yeah, I've been busy with that job and everything else.
Very cool. And you work at Independence. You're the executive.
I am. I'm executive director of Independence Incorporated. And thanks, it gives me an opportunity to plug us a little bit.
Definitely.
So Independence Incorporated is a disability rights organization. So we work with people of all ages with all types of disabilities to help them live independently in the community. And we have our biggest fundraiser coming up actually a week on the 6th. So a week from Thursday.
Okay.
It is a chili bowl. So what it is a competition amongst area restaurants and chefs to actually see who has the best competition. So whenever I talk about this, people are always like, hey, my chili's the best. And it may be, but you don't get to enter the chili bowl unless you're actually a professional.
Okay.
And so we've got, I think as of this morning, 10 restaurants competing in it. And they're going to come in. So, yeah, we want the members of the public to come in, and you can buy a ticket for our event. All donations go to Independence to help us with our mission. You get to sample all the chilies. There'll be some raffle prizes there and some different opportunities to give and donate and live music and just a good opportunity to get out. And I know it's a little warmer today, but it is still a little chilly out there.
Yeah.
Chili's always good.
There it is. I love it.
So what day is that?
It's on March 6th. Starts at 5 at the Grand Oasis. So the Grand, they've just kind of rebranded.
That's right.
And it'll be a good night. And you can go to Independence's Independent CIL, as in centerforindependentLiving.org, and get your tickets there. There's links all over our Facebook page as well. Plenty of opportunities, and tickets will be on sale in the door. I know Minot people don't like to commit too early.
That's the
it's
truth.
the scariness of those of us putting on events. We'd love to have people come there and
absolutely
support us. So
look forward to that. That sounds like it'll be a great little event going on next week.
It is. It's a lot of fun. It's I don't always get to sample all the chili because I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off.
That's a bummer.
But I every year I pledge this is the year I will, or I'm gonna like go buying some like Tupperware in.
Yes,
and
bring it home.
Yes, for later at least.
Yeah, but it's great, and the different restaurants do an amazing job, and chefs do an amazing job of. Some of them kind of bring what they have on their restaurant menu, and others get really creative with it and try different things.
That's
and
neat.
stuff.
I like it.
If you're a foodie at all, this is also a good place to be.
This is it.
I like it.
Kyler's gonna have to start a restaurant so he can enter his chili.
Yeah,
I make good chili.
I assume I was at Marketplace and you can get the canned ones, but it says Wendy's on it, so you can get the canned Wendy's chili.
I'm the Hormel in a can chili. Yeah,
that's right. Doctor it up. Sell it at a restaurant.
Also, that Wendy's chili in a can is like ridiculously expensive.
Is it good?
it is.
It's. I haven't tried it. I don't know.
I heard a story a few years ago of a guy that just in their office they had a chili competition, and much like sometimes us guys tend to be a little forgetty, and he forgot.
Of course.
And so he quickly swung through Wendy's and ordered the biggest tubs of chili he could get, and then dumped it into his Tupperware, and he won the competition. So
that's
we've all
funny.
been there.
Yes. Wendy's coming from behind out of nowhere. I love it.
Guys, speaking of guys being last minute on Valentine's Day, of course I was last minute. But what was neat was I got to hang out with a bunch of guys from around town at marketplaces. We were all buying flowers together. It was like, interesting. This is
Everybody was
hangout.
lined up around the flower little part there. I love it.
But you didn't forget. You made it. You know, you did it well.
You still did it. That's what matters.
All right. Well, we got a few things to talk about. We're going to talk about state of the city, some budget process as the city moves into that time, and property taxes and school bills,
Bunch of some stuff failing in the legislature the past couple days,
bills.
And we'll talk about some advocacy rights things that have been going on, some big stuff in the news in Minot lately too, and we'll discuss that with Scott here too.
It's going to be a good conversation that we have today. If you have a question you want to ask, throw it in the chat, and we might throw it at him depending on what your question is.
See. Jonathan will vet it because I can't see it.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so moving on. It was good to see at the State of the City. How do you feel like that went? Obviously, kind of direction, not just direction, recap of what the city's doing, and then some direction that's going forward. How you excited to still be living in Minot?
Of course, I love the city of Minot. That has not changed a bit, and I think Mayor Ross does a fantastic job of kind of telling that story, and he's really in his element when he gets to get up there and talk about here's what's going good in Minot, and it's so hard. We live in such a world. So many of us are hurting right now. So many of us are struggling right now, and it can become so easy to kind of get stuck in the echo chamber of everything that's wrong. But sometimes it's so important to pause and be like, let's look at what's right. What is good?
Yeah.
Look at all the things that are happening despite all of the things that are wrong. The spirit, the creativeness, the ways of doing things. And Tom just does such a good job of really highlighting that and talking about all the different aspects of what is good in this community.
Absolutely.
Speaking of that, where's your hat?
My
You forgot your Sisu hat.
I am not wearing it today.
Which again is the word that helps embrace the boldness and the resilience that a place like Minot has. It's kind of like Minot's theme word for the year, almost kind of like our motto for the year.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so strong, and that strong, kind of Scandinavian heritage that a lot of the folks in this community have is, that's what makes us kind of stick-to-itiveness and this figure things out.
So honestly, my hat, I like it. It's beautiful. The baby blue and the yellow.
Coming.
There is. It smells like chlorine. Like the whole night that I was wearing it progressively got worse. And I was like, dude, it smells like something's burning. And then I was like, it's my hat. It smells like chlorine I was mixing with it. So I had to get that smell fixed, and then I'll be wearing it again.
There we
go. I love the hat. It's a beautiful hat.
I look forward to seeing it on Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. We'll see if we can get that figured out in time. I'll have it right next to you.
What is it, the process for getting that smell out?
Exactly right. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but we're gonna figure it out because I love the hat.
I have faith in you.
No, it was good. The other thing that's cool, and I don't know, is he mentioned the song with this Minot Symphony that's going on. There's a contest going on. If anybody wanted to participate, where you can create an anthem for Minot.
I think you have until the middle of March to submit those lyrics.
Yeah, March or April. If it's March, we need to get on it. And Dr. Emerson Eads with Minot State is going to be helping put music to it and everything. It's pretty awesome. I don't know if you've heard it, but we have one where we used AI to create it. It's fantastic.
It's
fantastic. We're not submitting it, but we're going to go and get it all music videoed up, and then we're going to present it.
Yeah. That's going to be fabulous.
Yeah. It's a good time.
It's a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Right, with AI doing it. But the point of it is to get people surrounded and bought into what Minot is. 100%. I think that's something that Minot sometimes struggles with, and it's basically a message that Tom Ross was preaching is like, there's so much great going on. If we all buy into this together, then how much better can we make it, rather than looking at the sides of things that don't look right, Yeah.
Well, and there's so many opportunities too to step in and help, and to whether it be to volunteer or to show up or to support somebody. And not everybody can do everything. I get that. Sometimes it costs money that people don't have, but there's still opportunities just to cheer each other on and things like that too. And the more that we can do that and just help each other out, it can just make such a big difference. And it can help with, again, I think that is such a solution to so much of the kind of negative echo chamber that exists in the world today, is you fight against that by actually being nice to humans, being supportive of each other, and supporting people, even if they're not people you agree with all the time. Right. Even if it's not necessarily your thing. Just help people out, cheer them on. That's so important.
We were talking beforehand about the lack of conversations with people that we don't agree with. Yeah. We go and we talk in echo chambers, and we get overly passionate about what we have because the echo chamber just gets worse and worse and worse.
It keeps enforcing that.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, somebody disagrees with this,
They must be completely out of it.
Right.
But lo and behold.
Right. And that's something that we have to be careful of.
Absolutely.
So Minot is going into this lengthy process, and I was just chatting with city manager Harold Stewart, it's like the budget process, it ends, but it really never ends. It's ridiculous. As you began to approach this, and you were on the city council, as you began to approach this time of year, what were some of the things that you really wanted to be able to focus in on, so that way you would be able to have a really good understanding of what was going to be needed in that budget?
So much of it is about gaining knowledge, because that budget is so complex, and it can be so easy, and I've talked about this, that sometimes you see, and I experienced this myself, from candidate Scott to Alderman Scott. And you almost see like, it's not a light comes on because you feel like you get dimmer for some reason, because you get so overwhelmed with so much information.
Okay.
And you see that in candidates and new aldermen, and I've saw it for years, because you're just dealing with the complexities of everything and all the different kind of processes of learning and listening to what are the trends, what are the needs, what are the areas that that we can potentially save some money, where are the areas that no matter what we do, we're going to have to spend money.
Yeah.
What are the things that we can push off till tomorrow? What are the things that just are never going to happen? And so you're really, in this stage in the budget process, it's just about almost unlimited amounts of question asking and trying to gather data. You always have sort of your hopes and dreams of what you want it to come out to be.
Right.
But at this point, you don't really even have enough knowledge yet.
Yeah.
So it's just following all of that process.
Starting out at that very basic outline of it all and just adding information in there, going through the departments and trying to get that knowledge base up and to a more manageable level going into the actual numbers of it all.
Right. And you're monitoring the current budget to look at where things are at too. And you're only 2 months into it right now, so there's not a lot of money spent yet. Yeah. But you're paying attention to that. Like, is all of a sudden, something way over budget or way over projections, or is something like just not going to happen? You'd planned for some project that isn't happening because things beyond your control, because of inflationary issues. The time I was on, everything was going up ridiculously in price, and that wasn't the fault of the folks in Minot. It was the world we live in.
Nationwide thing, global thing even at that point.
Exactly. So just monitoring all that stuff and trying to find ways and fix problems. So,
well, I mean, right now we live in a world where Waffle House has a surcharge. I believe it's Waffle House has a surcharge on eggs, and Denny's is going to follow suit based on market. Just a crazy, you can only imagine how stuff like that affects other people way outside of us, but it does also trickle down into the city, little things like that, which turn into big things. So you're kind of focusing. Look, you mentioned this is specifically what I want to talk about. You mentioned you're 2 months into this budget that you just sat and worked hard, and now you're creating another budget. So you're almost basing a budget on a 1.5-year-old budget, because you go and you see the full previous budget, which would now be the fiscal year of 2024. You see those numbers. You have the 2025 budget approved that you're working through, and you're creating 2026 budget. So you're almost basing it more on 2024 than 2025.
In a lot of ways you are. And you're also, you're budgeting it on too, as you went through like the 2024 budget or 2025 budget, I'm sorry, too, there were things that you left off that you just couldn't afford at that time.
Yep.
You had things that you knew were like one time, like we are not spending any more money on this anymore. So now is there some other place that those money can be allocated for? Or can we look at, a potential savings to the taxpayers? Like you're looking at in Montreal, so you really don't ever get out of budget mode. You're constantly looking at, maybe I think like the night we passed the budget, you took a little breath, and then a week later we were like doing amendments or something. It felt like, so there really isn't big pauses in it. You're constantly looking at savings. You're looking at, best ways to make investments. Now, I was always a big fan of, if we have the money, let's spend it now so that we don't have to spend it in the future.
Right.
But that's not always possible either.
Right. Yeah.
So
one topic that's huge on everyone's mind right now is the police department and their facility. But something else that we've been talking about is this. Do you feel that there should be a raise, I guess, given to the city council members and the mayor?
Ooh, so that's a fantastic question that I haven't given a lot of thought to. Let me say this. I've had people before tell me things like, it should just be a volunteer job.
Wow.
Here's what I'm going to say is that not paying that position well enough is a great way to ensure that people that are economically independent or retired and just have, don't need to work can do that job. And in my opinion, we have enough of that voice within government, period.
Right.
Yeah.
I think if you want to have people that are working class, people that really need that job, I mean, I'm fortunate. I have a good job. I didn't need the income when I was on city council, but let me tell you what, it helped pay for a little extra vacation now and then.
Yep.
It helped pay for maybe an extra night out with the family because I'm not home helping quite as much.
Right.
I mean, there was that amount of money that I had did make a difference in making life easier for my family while I was serving the people of Minot. Now, is that too much or is that not enough? I do think maybe it's okay to, like, if city employees get a 5% raise, that job gets a 5%, like, kind of build in, because you don't want to fall behind, which is, I think, what happened before.
Yep.
I think the last increase had been in like the 80s or something like that.
Yeah.
And somebody out there probably knows this and they're like, Burlingame, you don't know what you're talking about. And the fact is, I don't in this case. I just know it had been a long time.
Right.
So I think building in some raises, it makes sense.
Right.
And it's not a lot of money, but just something to incentivize so that people that are giving of their time, actually are people that want to run, actually give of their time, and that they don't have to rely on other sources. The other thing is that, and the mayor is Tom will tell you it's going to be more and more of a full-time job. We might hit a point where we need a full-time mayor. Now, different mayors may do things differently.
Right.
I don't want to say, but I think that we have to have that conversation and look at what do the people of Minot want out of that position. I would never want to be a full-time council member.
Right.
I don't actually think that actually helps. I think that we need to be out having our side jobs, or our primary jobs, I guess.
Right.
The council is our side job, working with people, talking to folks, existing within the community in which we live. It shouldn't be a career. It should be service. But I think that mayor might be a little bit better argument, because there's so much time involved with being mayor, and there's so many responsibilities.
It's a massive commitment just for the council part as a part-time job. It's you're working minimum probably 15 to 20 hours a week, and that's probably bare minimum.
Bare minimum, yep.
And let alone if you're in the mayor's position where you're doing a whole bunch of events all throughout the week. Typically,
Yep.
You're going all over the place, and then you're the advocate for the city as well. And
Absolutely. And I think you look at the state of the city, I believe they had a mayor's summit earlier that day. So that whole day, Tom was basically just doing mayor stuff. And he thanked his current employer for allowing him to do that. But not every employer can do that. And not a lot of self-employed people can do that.
Exactly.
There's just, it's tough. And
Right.
And I think we have to respect that and realize there is a responsibility of that. And just the time you spend, like I said earlier, reading the city council packet comes out, and the amount of time you spend on that. And some of those council packets have hundreds and hundreds of pages of stuff in there.
Yep.
And if you're going to do due diligence, you want to go through it. And I would come up with my list of questions when I was done, not Steve Potagrula level questions. That guy was a legend with his questions.
it's different, yeah.
But I would, come up with questions, and then I'd send them off to city staff, or I'd ask them at council, and just kind of trying to learn that. That takes a considerable amount of time.
Right. Yeah, for sure. How much does council get paid? I have it as 1,100, but I know that's low.
It's right in that category. That's about what was. So I think it was maybe 1,200 a month or something like
Give
that.
or take a little bit. Yeah.
So if it was 1,100 at 80 hours a month, which would be around 20 hours a week, $13.75 an hour. That's a good job.
That's
I mean, if you want a part-time job, you can go somewhere else. And I know it's public service and all that. They shouldn't be paid $40 an hour or, whatever. I understand that, but this is very, very entry level.
Feels like just a little bit more would be on. It should be something that should be on the table just to help incentivize. Just a little.
And it's so hard because inevitably, and again, you talk about this and instantly people start coming back at, well, my property taxes keeps going up and now you're giving yourself a raise.
Yeah.
I respect that. I understand that argument. I do. But at the same time, we need to ensure that we're getting qualified people to run for office and people that are struggling with property taxes and are struggling to pay their bills, when they're going to sacrifice that amount of time, it does matter.
These are big cities, but they're kind of fun stats to look at. LA, it's 300 plus a year to be a council person. Minneapolis, it's 100 plus K a year to be a city council person. There's actually work that gets put into those positions. So it's something where it would be all right if Minot, and I say actual work, and I'm being a little maybe sarcastic in nature. But the point is, like, it'd be all right to pay them. And I understand the part where the money, and it's our tax dollars, but because it's necessary, and I'm not throwing stones, but we'll go and we'll create a new position somewhere in the city. We'll go and we'll do those things because it's necessary. Well, I think it'd be all right that we paid our city council people, and the total cost is going to be like $50K under $50K a year.
Yeah, of a higher increase, and
we'll drop that on just insert line on paper in a year.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
you know, it's time. I don't know about full time. I'm on the fence of full time. I lean towards that direction, not for council, but for mayor.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly when the right time is for that. But that's definitely a direction we should be looking at.
I think the conversation needs to happen, and we've had it a couple times on here, and I
Yeah.
think I hope it continues to be promoted in other circles. I hope
Right.
places like Fargo maybe start to look at it. I think you would need to see something from someone like them first, probably, to really get that ball rolling. But
Yeah.
I would like to see something progress on that.
Hey, Minot led the way with that letter.
They did.
to Bismarck, so we can lead the way with the mayor. The thing with that though is, and I don't have this in front of us, but what you'd have to look at is the point that you made of who's on their council. Are you looking at people that are more well off for mayors? For the last 3 or 4 mayors, has it been people that kind of are either retired or are doing really well in those cities? And so maybe the conversation of being full-time isn't even one that is brought up as often.
It's not even necessary.
And maybe it's one that some people don't even want brought up, because it kind of would open up the gates for more people to be able to be running for mayor.
Yeah.
Like you need to have a full look at that before you make a full decision. But something more prevalent that is going to be coming up probably sooner than salaries is the police department facility.
Yes.
Obviously, this is something that's gained a ton of attention.
Starting off in last year's budget period,
Yep.
really, and then
Right.
it's kind of started to transition now over into this year.
I think it got highlighted then. It's probably been on the mind
You're
since
right.
city council moved.
Exactly.
Or the city staff has moved. So what as you've been thinking about this while you were on council and maybe even after, what's kind of a direction that you would kind of think may be a good idea to take? I'm not trying to put you in too much of a spot, but
It's so hard right now because we have these big legacy projects that Minot's paying for.
oh yeah,
and they're taking up such a big hunk of our taxes that it's so hard to add one more in.
Yep.
And that's the difficult part, is that, you know, what is the mood, or the what do the taxpayers want?
Right.
and you know, I want to say this first off. Can we just, you mind if I just pause here a little bit and talk about police issues a little bit?
Please, yeah.
Because obviously since I left, the whole police report came out, and
Yeah.
I was proud. I was endorsed by the local police Fraternal Order of Police. I was the first person ever to do that, so I have a strong bond with those guys. And as I've watched all of this go on, I just want to kind of say to anybody that's out there that's watching this or has been part of it, that I want to first off say I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything that's going on with the police force and everything that has gone on. And I think there's been a whole lot of finger pointing. There's been a lot of here's what went wrong, or here's what that person did wrong. I want to say I'm sorry that I didn't do a better job when I was on council to try and make things better for the police force. They serve us well, and they need to be thanked for what they do, and we need to be a part of what we do. And I wish there was a lot more of that, of just like, this situation is not good. It's everybody's fault, and we all need to work together to make it better. And as I say that, I think that one of the things that we have to look at is, what is the facility, the place where those officers who serve us so well do a good job or do their work in, and undoubtedly the space that they currently have. I mean, I was over there not too long ago. I had the opportunity in the last year to do trainings through Independence with all of the officers, and I appreciated that opportunity so much. But I mean, they're sitting in old city offices that haven't been changed. Yeah. You know, I sat in on some police interviews that were held in the old city council chambers that look about the same as they did the day that we walked out of there. Sure. You know, we can do better. I really, really do like the idea that was talked about at the last council meeting of, let's reach out to the rank and file officers and listen to them. What do they think they need? And we have to tell them money is not unlimited. Right. You know, you may want the greatest space station police officer units ever, and I do too, because if we could find a way to pay for that, I want all of that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But we don't have unlimited resources. So let's talk about what is the absolute minimum that you need? What is the next level, and how can we build up to that? And what are the pros and cons of all this? Let's have a long community discussion about this, and recognize the fact that it's going to take up a while, and really work through that. I don't know. I personally, I think my personal preference would be to use something within the campus that already exists.
Sure.
Because there's already some infrastructure there.
Right.
You know, I like that philosophy better. I always have. But I also don't know if that's enough. I also don't know if that's practical. Municipal court was talked about. staff at Independence are at municipal court every day. We go over there and provide community resources. Pretty familiar with what goes on at municipal court. I'm pretty familiar with the problems with that location.
For sure.
I don't want them to move because I appreciate the fact it's right across the street from me. And I'm joking when I say that. We also, the bus station used to be right across the street from us, and the dumb city council, when I was on it and voted for it, moved it to a nice, much better location now. But
Downtown.
it's my joking of I was the worst ever for my personal interest. I voted away. But the fact of the matter is that we do need a new municipal court at some point as well. And I think that we have to have these conversations and what they are, but we need to have real conversations with the city, to the taxpayers of Minot about what can we afford and what are you willing to pay for? And when is the right time? Is as much as important as what, it might be the importance of when. Is it, do we have to wait until maybe something else is paid off before we can begin that process? Do we have to wait until there's some, new source of income or some new way of doing things? Do we have to wait until, maybe some things that are around federal funding settle down a little bit now? I think there's a lot of different things that have to be looked at. So I think we have to kind of develop what do we need? How much is that going to be? And then we determine the when.
So you mentioned conversations with people of Minot. That was a huge point that was made during campaign season. Do you feel like that, not even do you feel like that's improved, how do you feel like these type of conversations can be better facilitated? It really does not feel like it is done. It's not a slam at the city council. I'm just saying it doesn't feel like city council meetings are the place where these conversations are truly happening with the people of Minot. Is there a better format that would work?
I tell you what, it's so interesting because in my day job, one of the things that we do is we talk about civic engagement, community engagement for people with disabilities. So just within that target population, you study things like civic engagement, and you see how when COVID hit, we saw a drastic decrease in civic engagement across the board. And even the ways it used to work, kind of your town hall meetings and stuff like that, have, I think, been replaced by a lot less effective. Everybody goes on Facebook and just says their positions and then retreats
whatever
back
they
in.
want.
And so I don't know if I have a great answer on that. I would love to begin to see some good old fashioned town halls again. And you're seeing that. I mean, like now with like national elected officials and stuff. But even then, I was just watching one where somebody was either legally or illegally arrested during the middle of it, and because of protests and things like that. And I get. I respect protesting as a sometimes as a key part of the First Amendment if you, go along those lines, but also like we do need to have opportunities to get together and discuss things like we said earlier when we disagree and to listen and without people being shouted down or without people shouting down from the audience. So I would really love to see some more opportunities for that. I just don't know how. And I don't know where.
I think it's an interesting thing for people to chime in. Like, what's the best way that you as a citizen would engage with something like that? Because it is really difficult. Like you said, on Facebook. Last city council is a great example of that. Insanely watched, one of the
highest watch that I've seen. Since I've been doing this.
With tons of comments, and it was just because there was one topic that everybody was kind of passionate about a lot because it affected a lot of personal lives, and so everyone chimed in, and probably not a lot of constructive comments, maybe a few, but a lot of feelings that are being placed out there, which aren't really that great for a town hall where you're trying to have constructive conversation. People's feelings matter, but what I'm not talking about someone's actual feelings that would help the matter, just,
more
off
general.
the cuff stuff that's being said, which is cool for social media because it creates a great engagement,
of course,
right? But for constructive conversation, it's hard.
Because you could always say that they could try to set up a forum where all the city council members and the mayor go to, say they rent out
sounds like something that a hotel should do.
It rents out a hotel ballroom and you invite everyone free of charge, have drinks, and then 8 people show up.
Well, I mean, a great example of that's the state of the city. I mean,
exactly.
To be real, like this is a time where people can show up and engage with their council people. They can engage with the mayor. Maybe not be able to ask questions directly to the stage, but you can still get one-on-one attention with your mayor and with your council people. And there's previous years I've been attended better, and it's just kind of unique, a very unique challenge.
It's a wide open forum. It's a free flowing engagement beforehand where it's just an open luncheon where you can walk around, talk with whoever, and it's the opportunity's there, but it's trying to find not just find the opportunity, but find the people to take advantage of the opportunity.
Right.
And I know that we had talked about at one point, like it would maybe like more neighborhood things be better, where we're going to be in, the Oak Park neighborhood tonight, but then like, how do you even communicate that with people? Like, I don't know. I mean, it would sure be, and I love that ideal, and I love the idea of people coming out and having conversations and talking, and I was at some things, like there's some transportation discussion things, like public forums that I was at, where I thought there was fantastic discussion at. But again, I just wish that, we almost had a conversation about like, what is the purpose of these? It's not to, when I'm on council, again, when I was on council, I was fine. You wanted to come and yell at me or, complain. It was my job or whatever. Right. But sometimes I wanted to be like, come and ask me questions. Right. Yeah. Come and talk, find out why I'm thinking the way I am. Let me allow you to ask you questions as well, because I'm trying to educate. I said earlier, the first thing when it comes to budgeting is all about learning. Believe it or not, I never thought I had all the answers. Maybe that's why I didn't get reelected. Is I didn't have all the answers. But
somebody else said they did.
Yeah. So my nature is to listen and everything else, and to pay attention and come to me and talk to me about this stuff. And even if we don't agree, I'm going to listen. And I've had my mind change before too. Yeah.
Fair.
No, we've seen you have your mind change on the dais. I think it is interesting when people go use the public comment, they go and they take their 5 minutes, they berate, they ask rhetorical questions. At the end, they're like, yeah, of course you guys want to respond. It's like, you really didn't want a response to this. You just wanted to fight. Yeah. That's all you wanted to do.
You wanted to pick a fight and elicit a response out of it.
Right, yeah. We're just looking for conversation, quality conversation. And when that happens, the mayor will waive the 5 minutes and there'll be quality conversation.
Yes, absolutely. And so much of good has came from that as well.
Yeah,
when you come forward and do that. And I can think of so many examples of that where, policies or processes were changed because of people coming forward. And I really do appreciate that.
At the last city council, public appearance was taken advantage of well in that way, and the 5 minutes was waived. We're going to talk about that right after this 60-second break. We'll be back.
In the demanding world of oil and gas, precision, safety, and efficiency are non-negotiable. Unmanned operator drone services revolutionizes how you monitor, inspect, and manage your operations. With cutting-edge technology and expert operators, we deliver real-time data, detailed reports, and actionable insights for our valuable clients. Why risk the safety of your team or waste precious time? Our drones access even the most challenging areas with ease, reducing downtime and enhancing safety across your sites. We take the guesswork out of your projects by offering LiDAR, mapping, and inspection services so that your projects stay safe, on budget, and on time. Unmanned operator drone services, where technology meets safety, precision, and efficiency. Contact us today to elevate your operations. Yes, pun intended.
And just like that, we're back.
We're back.
Tyler, take us into this next topic.
So looking weird, as we were discussing last Tuesday on the city council meeting, there was a public appearance. It was from a citizen in town who had some concerns of a neighbor of him. He had some different issues come up over the few years, whether it be some different violent outbursts or some potential issues with minors. There was a plethora of things that they went over, and there was a lot of public engagement over it. Everyone had a little comment to say about it last week. Not everyone, but a lot of people have heard about this situation before in one way or another, and it came to light at city council last week, and it really opened up some people's eyes onto not just individuals' rights, but the rights of everyone involved in a situation. And Scott, I know you have a little bit of a background in this topic. Do you have any takes on this one?
I have a lot of takes on it. And I definitely would welcome you guys to ask questions as we go throughout this
look forward to it.
And I just want to say too that I know of this gentleman. I cannot confirm or deny whether or not he has received services from the company I work for, but I will be saying that I am not discussing any of that when I talk today. What I talk about today will be related to both work that I did while I was on the council, work that I've done since I've been on the council in a kind of community advocacy role, and whatnot. So there will be no violations, and also I get the opportunity to talk really kind of broadly as well about what happens in these situations. And we were just saying, as we're watching it at home, or I don't know if you were there. like part of me was like, oh, no. Yeah, like factually
whoa.
things are wrong. And like, let's just like make sure we kind of work through all of this. So as we begin this conversation, I just want to lay out a little bit of history because it's important to realize too that for a long time in our history, kind of an ugly part of our history was that people with disabilities were institutionalized. Their civil rights were taken away from them without their permission.
For sure.
And without due process or without anything like that. And so then, as lawsuits came about, 70s, 80s, there was a swing in the other direction to where there became due process for people losing their civil rights, as there should be. I think we would all agree that there should be.
For sure. Yep.
And that being said, though, too, is that certain populations of people kind of fell through the cracks in all of that. And when you're looking at, situations like this, so a guy who is a senior citizen, he's not a young man by any stretch. He kind of fell through the cracks on that a little bit because his parents likely did not have him on a guardianship type situation. Okay. He just lived with his parents who are just natural guardians. His parents have since passed away. Now he is living on his own. So he has no civil ways that his rights have to this point been limited. The one thing that was said incorrectly at council quite a bit was they kept saying he has a guardianship for paying his bills. That's really not what exists. What most likely happens is he has a rep payee, which is actually through the Social Security Administration that allows for somebody else to come in and operate the finances for somebody that isn't capable of doing so. But that's not a civil thing as much as a ruling by the Social Security Administration saying that this is possible.
For when they're doling out the payments for the disability, whatever.
And sometimes it's oftentimes a family member. Other times there'll be a corporation that'll do it. I think the corporation gets, I might be a few dollars off, and it's about $45 a month. And I've always said I would take that deal. I'll pay somebody $45 a month to pay all my bills and give me a little bit of an allowance when they're done. Sold. Just to take that stress away from me. Sold. No but so that's what this gentleman has. Other than that, he has civilly the same rights and responsibilities that we all do. Now the next problem with that is that as you mentioned, he has some he's been dealing with some issues with law enforcement. The law in North Dakota says that if you are, if you're brought up on a Class B misdemeanor, which a lot of the charges are, that the court shall, and shall is the important thing here, dismiss the charges. So it's not an issue of where like he's going in front of municipal court and they are dismissing his charges because he's not guilty because of a ruling. It's because they're determining that he's not competent. But that is for the civil side or for the criminal side of things. But the civil side of things are where the kind of struggle is coming here. And if this gentleman had been able to have a guardianship at an earlier point in his life, as many people would that were younger, that don't kind of fall into that age gap, he'd have had the capacity to have had a guardian in place to make decisions for him that he's not civilly able to make. And that's where a lot of this comes. Now, the good news is we heard at again, this is all public record at council, is the Catholic Family Guardianship Services have petitioned for, and most likely what happened is that a state agency who is assigned with the responsibilities of stepping in to file for this has filed for it.
Okay.
And now, should that have happened earlier? I think we should all agree, yes. Yeah. It should have happened earlier.
It sounds like
100% should have happened probably 10 years ago. But it didn't. The good news is it is now, and it's being pushed forward. When that comes into place, what will actually happen is that if the court rules as such, which I certainly hope they do, and again, we're still dealing with courts, and we're dealing with he'll have attorneys that will represent him. There'll be attorneys representing that he needs a guardianship, and they'll kind of argue in front of a judge. But with all the evidence, and I know that all the evidence that was talked about and a lot more is going to be presented to that judge to make that ruling. And that judge then will likely make a ruling that this gentleman is not able to make decisions. And when he does that, he will then lose, if you will, and this is a harsh way of saying it, but it's probably necessary.
Just got to be blunt with it sometimes.
Is that he will lose his right to make decisions on where he lives and things like that. Therefore, then they will be able to place him in a better environment. Now, there's a bunch of different environments that might exist, but that's probably going to be the right answer for him.
Right. No, that very comprehensive answer.
That was
really
fantastic,
appreciate
Scott.
that.
Thank you. One thing, I guess, if by some chance, hypothetically, the judge were to rule that he is competent to facilitate his own services, what would happen at that point? Would criminal charges be able to be
that's
hypothetically, yeah.
it's a fantastic conflict of the law.
Yeah.
That probably I would need to be an attorney to answer.
Actually, sure. Have more law. Yeah.
Yeah. I would really hope that doesn't exist, because I don't think there's much question in this case that this gentleman doesn't have that capacity. I don't know exactly what his disability diagnosis is. One of the problems with this population is they oftentimes didn't get a diagnosis. I'll give you an example, guys. When I was growing up in church, there was a gentleman that came to our church that had Down syndrome, and he lived at home with mom and dad, and because he was worked on the farm, and the family took care of him.
It was either that or Grafton.
Yep. Yeah. And in his case, he just worked on the farm, and except for mom and dad don't live forever. Yeah. And so this gentleman got to be a certain age, and they had, at that point, I believe this law has changed now, but it used to be you couldn't even get a diagnosis for an intellectual disability after the age of 18.
Oh, wow.
So if he's 60, he's always had the disability, but it's never been established.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where people just were literally falling through the cracks in that target population. Nowadays, parents, hopefully, I mean, I guess there's always rare exceptions, but, take your kid to the doctor, get that diagnosis. Even if you're not making use of services, at least get the diagnosis so that when you die, and I can deal with this on a personal level. Unfortunately, my brother passed away about 10 years ago, but I had a brother who had an intellectual disability, and mom and dad had set it up to where they were guardians, and then guardianship would have transferred to me if my parents would have died before my brother did.
Sure.
Yep.
And so those are those processes, but the paperwork is all there. The guardianship is established.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, with this generation that we're talking about here, that has really kind of been left out. Now, the other thing that, just to kind of talk about some of the things that were talked about in the comments and everything else is, people are like, well, could we involuntarily commit him? Involuntary committal isn't quite as exciting as a lot of people think it is. I don't know if it's exciting, but it's not quite.
Right.
You talk
It's
to
not
law
the fix they
enforcement.
make it seem
No,
like it might be.
oftentimes it's a 72-hour or less hold.
Oh, I see.
They will.
It's more like a stay in the psych ward for.
Yeah, exactly.
less
And
than-
oftentimes, you talk to law enforcement, they'll tell you it's usually less than 24 hours. They'll monitor meds and kick somebody back out again. Is that enough mental health services? Absolutely not. Do we need to have a bigger conversation about that? Absolutely.
Right.
However, this person, I don't know if it's an intellectual disability, which means does he have the capacity to stop doing what he's doing, or is it a mental health issue, which means there's a mental health crisis going on?
Yeah.
Or is it a combination of both?
Right.
Again, I can't diagnose him. I don't actually know him.
Exactly.
But these are the questions that need to be asked.
What's neat about, and neat sounds like a weird word, but understand what I'm saying. What's neat about situations like this is when they become so severe as it sounds like this one has, a lot of attention is drawn to it, and sometimes there becomes momentum to actually get laws changed that will be more productive overall for the individual and for society, for everyone. And so it sounds like potentially there could be some stuff that happens like that from this.
Absolutely. And I have not had a chance. I know that the city attorney was talking about a lot of this working his way through right now. I have not had a chance to check on that. I had intended to and kind of forgot about it. But yeah, I agree. And again, the pendulum swings maybe too far one way, and then it swings back a little bit the other way. But oftentimes where that swings somewhat is based on funding too.
Sure.
As I talked about earlier, I do believe that we need better mental health, better community mental health services. I think that's across the board, but that's not free. It's not cheap. There has to be a way to pay for that. Mental health professionals are highly skilled professionals that don't work for free.
Exactly.
So how do we do that if we decide that's what we want to do? And I'm willing to bet, Trinity is our local provider of like emergency care. Well, they aren't overstaffed, I don't think.
I think they're having their own issues in that regard
exactly.
themselves,
So that's part of the struggle here.
So it was brought up by the person that was speaking, like if this guy goes and kills someone, does he get off the hook for that too?
Yeah.
How far does that go? And I know that's very severe, and that's probably something that would be litigated for a long time. But how far does that go?
So first off, can we talk about the gentleman that came up, the neighbor that talked, and he did a fantastic job, and he's had to go through things that no family should ever have to go to, right?
For sure.
I actually thought about like trying to find a way to reach out to him and just be like, again, I'm sorry this happened, and also you have shown amazing restraint and actually been a pretty good advocate for something horrible not happening and stepping in. And I think he's probably saved this gentleman from some vigilante justice with just having a level head, which can't always be easy. So I think that's very important. And I again, without giving too, I'm not an attorney. I mean,
100%. Generally.
but I think that I think that what can happen is that if, say, in a horrible case scenario, there is some sort of a situation that you could potentially look at getting determinations on whether or not he was capable of making that crime at that time or not. But that is different than a Class 3 misdemeanor, which is most of the charges that he's had.
I see. That makes sense.
So
that makes sense. Very interesting, Dill. Well, it's something that really appreciate you giving a lot of professional insight.
Fantastic insight there, yeah.
Because I think that's something that is probably missing from the conversation right now on it. Other than the professional from the legal standpoint, which was fantastic to have the city attorney chiming in on that, but talking about for the advocacy portion of it.
And just, shout outs too to, as I said, the neighbors done a great job.
Yeah.
Officer Foley has been, or Sergeant Foley, Sergeant Jared, I didn't mean to give you a demotion there. Yeah. He's been doing a fantastic job of working through this and trying to support. I'm willing to bet that a lot of that effort is what's led to the state agency petitioning for guardianship. Again, this should have happened a long time ago, but it is happening now. And I had the opportunity to sit in with law enforcement, with the city attorney, with other agencies like ours, and talk about this gentleman and try to find solutions. And multiple things were tried before we got to this point. Nobody was wanted to rush into potentially taking this guy's rights away.
Right.
But at the same time, if, if he's not willing to do his part and he continues to make the decisions that he's made, there is consequences. And part of that is losing some rights.
Yep.
And he's not necessarily getting thrown into prison, but he is going to lose rights. And then it's going to become, there's going to be some sort of a provider that's going to need to step in and provide him with staffing and provide him with housing and stuff like that. And I do believe, I've been around enough people with situations not unlike his that with the right staff there and the right programming, can protect him. And I think that happens. If he was, instead of sitting on the street corner being inappropriate towards children walking to school, if he has a staff member with him, taking him away to go do something else, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Help divert that attention away and towards more productive things.
Exactly.
100%.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, appreciate that. Kyler, no hot takes today.
I think I'm pretty cool today. It's hot enough outside.
Yeah, finally warmed up. We had some hot takes that were so hot last week that they just haven't quite cooled off yet. They're still sizzling out there. Well, really appreciate you coming on today. Sky, has been a great conversation. And I'm still excited for the city of Minot.
Absolutely. I love this town. I love living here. I love my family being here. It's a fantastic community. I think we need to say that a lot more.
Yeah, we do. We do. One last question. Okay. And that's this. I think I've probably asked it before when we had a one-on-one interview, but what does Independence do?
Sure. So Independence, we remove barriers and achieve dreams for people with disabilities. So last year, the youngest person we worked with was about a 6-month-old who we helped him figure out a way to get his parents, and he wasn't really filling out forms or anything, but to get some equipment to help him breathe easier at night. Okay. The oldest person we worked with was in their 90s, and they were somebody that was living in a nursing home that we helped transition home. We work with a lot of people with behavioral health issues, dealing with addiction, and kind of help them keep out of the criminal justice system and live independently in the community. We work with over 20 schools in our area where we go in and provide pre-employment transition skills. Wow. Just a lot of different things that we do. So we help a lot of people with disabilities to just achieve their dreams.
That's neat.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Scott, I'm good. Scott, do you have anything else you want to touch on before we start wrapping up?
I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity. It's kind of fun to kind of stretch my civic skills again a little bit and have this opportunity. So I really do appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming on.
Also, thanks to you guys too for telling the story of Minot and taking time. It's gotten so hard. Local media has gotten to be such a small aspect of what we do, and it really relies on you independent guys out there, the folks doing that to tell that story and to create that opportunity. So I'm really appreciative for what you guys do.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And thank you for all of you that have tuned in today to watch this. Be sure to like and subscribe. We'll be live again this Thursday, 8 a.m.
Bright and early. Back to 8.
I don't want to say the guy's name because I'll mess it up. No.
Ole Larson.
Ole Larson will be joining us at 8 a.m. It'll be a good time. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.